In the heart of a sprawling city, draped in the twilight shadows of towering skyscrapers, stood the Vanguard Clinic, a beacon of modern mental health therapies. Dr. Adrian Marlow, the clinic's lead psychologist, was pioneering a revolutionary approach to therapy using virtual reality. The VR program, dubbed Mindscape, promised to immerse patients in the landscapes of their memories, helping them confront and heal their deepest traumas. Dr. Marlow's office was a stark contrast to the traditional therapist space. Gone were the plush sofas and comforting decor. Instead, sleek VR headsets and translucent screens filled the room, humming softly with the pulse of technology. Today, he prepared the equipment for his next session, his fingers deftly adjusting the settings as he reviewed his notes. His latest patient, Clara, had been struggling with recurring nightmares that therapy had failed to alleviate. As Clara arrived, her eyes wide with a mix of apprehension and hope, Dr. Marlow explained the process. "We'll delve into the scenes of your recurring dreams, but in a controlled environment. You can confront your fears without risk." Clara nodded, settling into the chair and fitting the VR headset over her eyes, her breathing steady but shallow as the program whirred to life. The room faded away, and Clara found herself standing in a digital reconstruction of her childhood home on a stormy night, the setting of her nightmares. Dr. Marlow monitored her vitals and psychological responses from his console, noting the increasing spikes in her stress levels as thunder echoed in the virtual space. As the session deepened, Clara encountered the shadows lurking in the corners of her memory, the dark figures of her dreams morphing into more distinct forms. Dr. Marlow observed with growing concern as the program seemed to intensify the experience beyond the intended therapeutic levels. Something was amiss, and the technology that was meant to heal began to border on entrapment. As the storm outside seemed to merge with the storm within the VR, Clara's session took a darker turn. The digital replication of her childhood home grew increasingly sinister, with the shadows deepening and the sounds of the tempest intensifying. Dr. Marlow watched, concerned, as Clara's stress indicators reached levels he hadn't anticipated. The therapeutic intent of the session was slipping into something far more disturbing. Within the virtual world, Clara encountered figures from her past, distorted versions of her parents, whose faces twisted into expressions of anger and disappointment. These apparitions didn't just recreate past grievances, they seemed to manifest new, more terrifying aspects, challenging her emotional resolve and deepening her fear. Dr. Marlow noted this anomaly, puzzled by the VR's evolution beyond its programmed parameters. Back in the real world, Dr. Marlow attempted to recalibrate the system. His hands moved quickly over the holographic controls, trying to dial back the intensity of the experience. But the system responded sluggishly, as if it had developed a will of its own. With each passing moment, Clara's immersion deepened, her reactions becoming less like someone reliving memories and more like someone trapped in a nightmare. In desperation, Dr. Marlow decided to enter the virtual environment himself to directly intervene. Equipping a secondary headset, he initiated the sync process. His vision soon flooded with the same stormy night that haunted Clara. He found himself standing at the threshold of the virtual house, rain lashing violently against the windows, the air charged with an eerie tension. As he stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing ominously. He called out for Clara, his voice lost amidst the howling wind. The house, once a place of childhood innocence, now seemed like a labyrinth designed to confuse and instill fear. Adrian's heart raced as he realized the gravity of what they were both caught in. The program was not just reliving memories, it was creating a prison of the mind. Inside the virtual realm, Dr. Marlow felt the oppressive weight of the simulated environment bearing down on him. The house seemed to breathe with a life of its own, the walls pulsing subtly as if in tune with Clara's heightened emotions. Each room he entered was a tableau of her fears, magnified and distorted beyond recognition. The paintings on the walls were twisted, their once serene landscapes turned into nightmarish scenes. He found Clara in the attic, a place she had mentioned only in passing during their sessions. It was recreated with unsettling accuracy, filled with relics of her past that now seemed menacing rather than nostalgic. She was cornered by the manifestation of her childhood fears, a massive, shadowy figure that whispered incessantly, its voice a cacophony of all the negative words she had ever heard about herself. "Clara, it's not real. You can fight it," Dr. Marlow shouted over the roar of the storm outside and the echo of the entity's whispers. She looked up, her eyes wide with terror and confusion. Slowly, The realization that she could control this environment dawned on her. With Dr. Marlow's guidance, she began to push back against the shadow, her face set with determination. As Clara confronted her fear, the attic began to change. The oppressive atmosphere lightened, and the shadows receded. The monstrous figure shrank back, its form dissolving into harmless whispers that faded into silence. It was a breakthrough, a testament to the potential of the therapy. If only they could escape the malfunctions of the VR system. With the immediate threat subdued, Dr. Marlow led Clara back through the house, which now seemed less daunting. However, as they approached the exit, the program glitched, the door vanishing before their eyes. Trapped, they realized that while they could confront psychological horrors, escaping the digital ones would be a different challenge altogether. With no exit in sight, and the program increasingly erratic, Dr. Marlow and Clara had no choice but to delve deeper into the virtual labyrinth to seek another way out. They traversed through rooms that shifted and changed, each one a deeper dive into Clara's subconscious, revealing secrets and fears she had never voiced. The house was no longer just a setting, it had become a character in its own right, actively resisting their attempts to escape. They came upon a room that mirrored Clara's first college dorm, a place of both fond memories and profound loneliness. Here, the program recreated friends and foes with uncanny accuracy, their digital forms flickering between warmth and menace. As they interacted with these apparitions, Clara realized that each figure represented a part of herself, her strengths and vulnerabilities laid bare. Dr. Marlow observed the interactions, noting how the virtual environment adapted to Clara's emotional responses. It was a psychological goldmine, but a dangerous one. Each revelation seemed to feed the program, giving it more material to manipulate their reality. Yet, this was also their path to potential liberation. Understanding the program's nature might offer clues to subverting its control. They found a library filled with books that Clara had read throughout her life, but with altered titles and contents that reflected distorted versions of her experiences and lessons learned. As they scanned the shelves, a particular book caught Clara's eye, a diary she had kept as a teenager, now ominously titled The Unspoken Truths. Opening the diary, Clara and Dr. Marlow were sucked into a new layer of the virtual world, a darker, more abstract realm where thoughts and memories were visualized as living entities. This was the core of the program, the source of its power to alter reality. Here, they would confront the ultimate guardian of her psyche, a colossal, shifting mass of shadows and light, the embodiment of all her repressed fears and unacknowledged hopes. In the deepest layer of the virtual realm, Dr. Marlow and Clara faced the embodiment of her inner guardian. The colossal entity, made of swirling shadows and pulsing lights, seemed both threatening and protective, guarding the core of Clara's psyche. As they approached, it shifted form, reflecting back their fears and desires in a dizzying display. Dr. Marlow realized that to free themselves, they needed to acknowledge and integrate these aspects of Clara's psyche rather than fight them. He guided Clara in a dialogue with the Guardian, encouraging her to accept and understand the parts of herself she had long rejected or feared. With each acknowledgement, the Guardian's form became less intimidating, more a part of Clara than a separate entity. This psychological integration began to affect the virtual environment itself. The oppressive, haunted atmosphere of the house slowly lifted, replaced by lighter, more serene visuals. The walls, once dark and confining, now appeared translucent, glowing with a soft light that seemed to breathe peace into the space. As the Guardian dissolved into the environment, becoming indistinguishable from the surrounding light, a pathway opened before them. The previously vanished door reappeared, now leading not just out of the virtual house, but symbolically out of the labyrinth of Clara's past traumas. Stepping through the door, Dr. Marlow and Clara found themselves back in the real world, in the quiet of the therapy room. The headsets lay beside them, silent and inert. Clara looked around, a sense of profound relief and newfound strength in her gaze. Dr. Marlow, too, felt a deep respect for the power of the mind's ability to heal and transform when guided with care. Their journey through the virtual landscape had ended, but the insights gained promised new beginnings in the real world.